Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. If you're just joining us, regular viewers know that I usually use this last segment to answer viewer questions that come into my email box. Now, to send me your parenting questions, simply send an email to questions@cooperativekids.com, and perhaps I'll select yours on a future episode. Now, I received numerous questions regarding the issue of caring for an elderly parent or moving your mom or dad into your home. According to a recent issue of U.S. News and World Report, 19 million Americans care for someone over age 75, typically a parent or a grandparent, who may in some cases live with them. Now, often called informal caregivers, these adult children or relatives provide 75 to 80% of all long-term care in the United States. Now, many struggle to find a living situation that gives parents both the assistance they need and the independence they desire, and end up having them move in with them. My next guest has some important advice for those considering moving their aging parent in with them. David Horgan is an award-winning medical educator, filmmaker, and director, and has been interviewed on this subject by USA Today and ABC News. He's the co-author of the book, When Your Parent Moves In, a first-hand account of what to do and what can happen when you move your folks in with you. Mr. Horgan is also the director of the Epiphany Tour, a program that reaches inner-city kids through film and music production, as well as practical work experience. Welcome to the show.
It's wonderful to be here.
Thanks for taking time out to come out here. Now, of course, my first question is, why did you write this book? I'm assuming it's come from personal experience.
Yeah, I think it was probably about 7 years ago that my wife at the time came to me and said, I don't think my mom can live on her own anymore. So what would you think about her moving in with us, build an addition on the house? And Bill, I'll tell you, I made that decision very quickly. I did not think it through. I didn't think of everything that would be involved in making this major life decision. So we did this, and it was a very bumpy process. And as we went through it, kind of making it up as we went along, I was thinking there's got to be some kind of a guide or a book. And I started looking for that. I looked on Amazon, I looked everywhere, I found a few articles, but I couldn't find a comprehensive guide. So I contacted a friend of mine, Shira Block, and I said, we need to write this book. I said, I'm going through difficult times. This thing needs to be mapped out. People need to know what this is really like, what to expect, and how to plan for it. And that's how we created When Your Parent Moves In.
And I know there's been some, like you said, there's articles on the emotional aspect, but they don't tell you much. And I know my wife and I are both in a situation where our parents are elderly, and it's only a matter of time before they're not going to be able to stay by themselves, and somebody's going to have to step forward and help them out. So what kind of suggestions do you have that you can share from the book about this topic?
Well, let me ask you a question, and be honest with me. Is your backup plan, if something happens to either of your parents, that you'll move them in with you?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's everybody's backup plan.
Yeah.
We walk around saying, well, if something happens, I'll move them in, and we don't think that through. Here's the advice. In the book, we have a quiz. Take the quiz. It will qualify whether or not you're really making this decision in the right terms, understanding what's going to happen. Most people make this decision at a time of crisis. Mom falls. She's in the hospital. People gather in a hospital room. They say, Bill, you've got the biggest house. You move mom in. And that's not the way you make this kind of decision. It really is life-changing. There's so many things to think about. The most important is you've got to have discussions up front. You have to come up with, what are the boundaries? Do we eat together every night? Where are we going to put your car? What do we do about visitors? Are they going to come early Saturday morning and we're not expecting that? All these things are going to happen if you don't plan things out. And whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision, you can find out by reading the book. I tell people, get 2 copies. Have mom and dad read it, you read it, then decide if you still want to do it.
Interesting here that you have a section I think that a lot of us worry about, and the section is inappropriate behavior. Yeah. And I think we worry about that, especially if mom or dad is suffering from Alzheimer's.
That happens. Yeah.
I've been through that with grandparents, and we worry about that. And also, I think what we also worry about is the fact that we're not sure we can help them.
Well, what I always say, and that makes a very good point, is that when a mom or dad move in, sometimes they see you as their primary source of medical care. Now, I can bring you a blanket, I can take your temperature, and I can make you some soup. But if you need serious medical care, I'm not your guy. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. In our case, my mother-in-law would go right from the hospital to the house and skip rehab because she believed that her daughters could take care of her. And it puts a burden on the children because they feel frustrated. They can't really give the care that mom or dad needs. It's very typical, and it can be very disappointing all around.
Now, do you speak to the actual parents themselves in your book? And because you said you suggested having 2 copies, one for the parents to read, one for the children to read. Do you speak to them about whether they think they should move in with their kids or not?
Yeah, that is the key. There are many stories in this book. They're real life experiences, and they're stories about people who have gone through this. And you make me think of the day that I woke up and finally realized I was thinking about, what am I losing here in terms of freedom? What did I give up to have this happen? I finally started thinking about, what did my mother-in-law give up? You know, she used to love gardening in her yard, and she used to love putting things out and doing all this stuff that she couldn't really do anymore, or didn't feel like she could do. So I went upstairs and I typed up this official deed to the backyard. And I said, you now own the backyard. Go do what you want with it. It's yours. I'll mow it. And it was this emotional moment between us. We both kind of clicked, like, I get it. I know what you're going through. And then she understood what I was going through. The key thing is, if you're going to move mom or dad in, you have to become real friends. You can't be that superficial, hi, mom, how you doing today? It's not going to work out in the long run, because you're going to have to converse, have these open conversations about boundaries and, existing in each other's spaces.
I think one of the things that is a struggle is when there's topics that you just don't see eye to eye because mom or dad, they don't get it. And so we are going to potentially have these topics that we just can't. You know what? Then you're going to have to go, you're right, mom, you're right. Just because it's not going to do you any good, right?
That's right. You're dealing with role reversal, because this is the house that you're in charge of, and when you grew up, they were in charge of the house. Parenting your children.
You're parenting your parents.
But when you put one of your kids into timeout and your child is crying, but that's your discipline action, grandma comes over with a cookie, you've been dismantled.
Yeah.
That can be tough stuff.
Oh, definitely.
And many, many things happen that you need to know before you make that decision.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point in what you bring up. You got to establish the boundaries beforehand. And I get a lot of requests for help with parents of saying, my mom is living with us and she keeps giving Johnny cake. You know, and we told them no cake.
We live through
or let's them play. You watch the television, and we say no television. But you got to set that up. But then the issue is there could be a point where grandma's not paying attention anymore. Cognitively, she's just not in the same place.
That's right.
And then there's struggles, and there's going to be some struggles that there may not be a solution to.
Yeah. No. This is, you manage. There's not solutions all the time, but you manage through things. I came home one day, and I found my mother-in-law asleep on the couch with the gas stove burning, and the kids were running around. Now, she didn't mean anything by that. It's just part of the aging process, but it was dangerous. Now, it was a good thing that I didn't blow up, because, once that toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in again. Unfortunately, I didn't blow up and have a terrible event, that kind of thing. But that's the kind of stuff we talk about, being prepared, knowing these things are going to come up if you make this decision. Makes it a lot easier to deal with it when it does happen.
There's a famous scene in one of the first episodes of Sopranos where Tony's mother's, learning to live by herself, and he's going over to visit her. He's going, Ma, what are you doing? He goes over there, and she's got something's burning in the oven because she forgot she left something in there, and he's yelling at her. He said, what's the matter with you? She's just yelling at him back, and it's just nothing conducive. So I think that's a good point. You gotta set things up, and you can't think of everything. You got to do the best that you can. What I really liked what you said is you gave her the deed to the backyard, which is a good representation that we may have to give up some stuff.
Yes.
Just like I tell parents, when you have kids, I was talking to a family one time, and they go, we have no place to have a play area. And I said, well, cordon off a part of the living room. That's our living room. And I said, that's nice, but you chose to have kids. So we can't have everything perfect. You may have to change things around during this time. Same goes with your parents. You may have to do that because it's so hard for them to give up they don't want to give up their independence and doing what they want to do, which makes life really challenging. And then, of course, we get to the whole driving issue. That's probably a whole nother topic.
That's right.
And how long should they drive, and how long do you let them drive, and when do you take the keys from them,
Right. Well, one thing I think is important to talk about, the relationship between children and grandparents is a truly beautiful thing. There are a lot of advantages. If you can get past the planning and get the boundaries in place, a lot of advantages. Our kids had time with Grandma they would not have had she not lived with us. And they would, put on little shows, they'd play guitars for her and all this kind of stuff. And that relationship can really grow. And there's an advantage in that sense. And the relationship that you have with Mom or Dad living with you, once you get past the role reversals, can be very enriching. It's once in a lifetime opportunity. So there's a lot of good to be had here, but you gotta have your act together. You wouldn't film a movie without a script. So don't do this without a guide.
I think it's also, we should keep in mind, our parents have so much wisdom, knowledge, and what life was like at a time that we weren't around. And I think that creates extra opportunities to ask them. I wished I had asked more of my grandparents who were, during the war and what they did. And I did a little bit, but I wish I'd done more. And I think in that kind of situation, you have more opportunity as long as you don't let your frustrations get the best of you, getting so, to the point where you're frustrated with your parent and angry. When parents ask me, well, what do I do about, my mother's giving him cake and let him watch TV? And I go, you know what? You might need to make a rule that when Grandma's around, these rules are in place and just let your hair down. But when Grandma's asleep or napping or she's out, then you're in charge. And the parents say, well, aren't the kids going to get confused? No, they'll understand that when the dynamics change or the caregiver changes, then the rules change. Because if you try to, really buckle down on your rules with your parent, it's not going to.
No, there's got to be a give and take.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
We're almost out of time, but one last tip from your book for parents.
Well, I just think it's so important that if you're going to make this decision, pick up a copy of the book, not to sell books, but I really wrote this with Shira because we wanted to let people know this is a very challenging process. And we made this book very thorough. There's a lot of things in here that can help both sides. Don't make the decision, don't do it with at least going through the moving in quiz and then see if it's the right decision for you.
I'm glad you wrote the book, and I'm
and Shira,
and definitely a lot of people are going to be a benefit from this as we're in the back cycle of life here, and it's time to take care of our parents. So thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it, David.
Thanks for having me.
On today's show, we discuss technology addiction and the dangers of the internet to our children. We met an author who inspires children to learn the language of signing through her children's books, and another author who just offered some advice on moving our aging folks in with us. I hope you'll tune in to future episodes of this program as I offer more tools to help you rebuild your parenting toolbox as an awesome parent or teacher. Now, if you're watching this on DVD or online and you'd like to get it on your local public access channel, contact my office to find out how. Making the world a better place to live begins at home as engaged, encouraged, and masterful parents. I'm Bill Corbett, and I'm going to see you the next time on Creating Cooperative Kids.